Okay.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday, and joining me right now is DuWayne Andrews Jr. We're going to be diving into all things Elixir of Love. What's up, DuWayne?
I'm doing well, and I'm very honored to be here, to be in the Black Media Matters studio. I'm just very humbled, so thank you for having me here.
Absolutely, and thank you for being here. The great thing is that I got to see the show on Sunday with my homegirl. She was in town from Atlanta, and it was her first opera, and I was blown away because honestly, the amount of people on the stage was mind blowing to me. First of all, that all of y'all worked out, all those people on the stage, but it really helped to share and tell the story in terms of like this town being engaged in what's going on. So I gotta say that I was like, whoa. And I told her, I said, this is the most people I've ever seen on stage at an opera. But just tell us a bit about your background, because, now it led you to this show, which was phenomenal. But you came from, it sounds like a real musical family. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my dad, who was born and raised in the Central District, he grew up to be a B3 organist, and my mom is actually all the way from American Samoa, and she grew up in the Samoan tradition and going to Samoan church and playing the ukulele and singing. And then I have two older sisters who are both classically trained pianists. My oldest sister is actually a college professor in African American Studies in Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio. And then my middle sister's a piano teacher, and she's actually helping some kids get ready for the Alvin Ailey camp performance out in the Moore Theater tonight. So there's all sorts of stuff going on there in the community, and I bring all that up because, as you said, music is very much in our blood. And when I was in elementary school, like I started to play the alto saxophone at St. George Elementary School, and then I went to O'Day High School, where I fell in love with musical theater. And then when I went to Seattle University, I got into choral music, and that's where I was able to, pick up and learn different languages as far as singing things in Gregorian chants and Catholic tradition and those kind of things. And then when I graduated from Seattle University, I was actually a political science major. I had plans to go to law school, and when I graduated, I didn't have anything lined up outside of me being a youth choir director at Mount Zion Baptist Church, which is also in the Central District, the church that I grew up in. And so that's how musical theater came back in my life. And then in 2011, Seattle Opera was holding auditions for Porgy and Bess, and I auditioned for that, got on the chorus, had a great experience with that, and here we are.
Wow. I mean, Porgy and Bess is an iconic show too. And so I think a lot of folks kind of know that story. This story here for Elixir of Love, it's like this young guy, he's looking, to basically make this girl kind of fall in love with him because he's loving her, right? Yep. And so it's this real like love story that blossoms, but it goes through its own, like almost every love story, it goes through its own like kind of pits and peaks and all of that. And I was so blown away by the talent. I mean, one of the greatest things that I think I've experienced because I just started going to operas, is that each one of them have these unique characteristics when it comes to set design and the costumes that are really telling the story. But as I said, there were so many people on stage. I was like, oh my God, it was a whole town there that was involved really in this, like these 2-3 people kind of love story, this kind of love triangle, so to speak. But tell us a bit about your experience in this particular show, because it sounds like, from what I was experiencing, it was very unique in the way that this story is told.
Well, and to add a little bit to what you said, what also makes it unique is this is an opera in this Seattle production set in the 1940s. So we have the fedoras, and we just have that nice classic look to it, or somewhat more of a modernized than what we would see, back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And this opera has been unique for me because this is actually the first time that I've came back on the stage in a full production as far as having everything memorized and being in costume. Because during the pandemic a year ago, I was in a play where we had like the scripts in front of us. So this particular Elixir of Love marks my coming back on the stage and really being back on there with the chorus and very talented artists. So that's been very unique. And then on top of that, my niece is an extra, or what they call a supernumerary, in which they don't speak or they don't sing, but my 7-year-old niece this is her debut, and she's been loving every instance, and she even came home to her parents and after the first day of rehearsal and was literally explaining every single thing she does on stage. She says, I go over here on stage left. And we were like, you know stage left and stage right? Like, yeah, so she's on it. And so it's been very refreshing to have her in the production, and it's beyond words for us to share the stage together. And then on top of that, the performance I believe you saw on Sunday, the Nemarino, the lead, is Amitai Patti, who is a Samoan tenor. So he made his Seattle Opera debut here, and my family, specifically my parents, got to meet him after the opera Saturday afternoon, and that was special to watch, especially my mom, my Samoan mom. So it's been an all-around great event, and this opera is very charming. It's a comedy. This is the first comedy opera that I've been in, so thankfully there's no deaths, and like Porgy and Bess, the one of the main characters doesn't leave, and and the other person's left behind. Yeah. There's a happy ending, and I read an article the other day. It was a review saying that this kind of opera, because of the comedy and because it's such a feel-good kind of production, is very needed in today's world, just with all that's going on. So it's been very nice to be part of such a refreshing production.
And I agree. That was one of the things I was going to highlight as well, is that I think many who probably don't attend operas at all have this predisposition, right? That these preconceived notions about what they're going to experience. And oftentimes, you experience the drama, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, through the vocal performance, it's all of this like tragedy and trauma that you're seeing, right? And, the first opera I saw was Blue, and I was just blown away. Obviously, I mean, full black cast, and this story is very much, coming from a strong African-American perspective, and I was so drawn to that story. But yeah, it's like these peaks and valleys of the emotion that you're going through. And so I really appreciated just being there, sitting with my homegirl and laughing throughout this. I'm like, man, this is hilarious. And the characters come through. The one thing I love about opera too is that it is all music based, right? We're talking about professional vocal talent, but they also really get into their characters, correct, which I appreciate. It's a bit different than musical theater because it is so strong on the music side, but that theater piece is still there as well. I mean, when you think about some of your greatest takeaways from being involved in this show, being on the chorus, tell us about maybe one of the top takeaways for you being in this particular production.
Well, I'll say one takeaway that I got and I would say this is like an essential message from the opera itself, is to be sincere, to follow your heart, that love wins. And even though it has, this is a comedy, it has its funny moments, but it's also an opera that's very warm and is very sensitive to some of the, I guess you would say, sadder moments. Mm-hmm. One of the most famous arias in all of opera that's sung is Una fativa lagrima, excuse me, I had like a break. But that's a very very soft moment in all of the laughs that go on in that opera. So, yeah, that's one of the things I take away is, once again, being sincere and to follow your heart, and to be in the moment, and to not hide, to not hide how one feels for another person.
Well, I love that you mentioned the softness. I actually leaned over to my homegirl and I said, wow, something so beautiful about the softest moments of song that come out in this opera. Again, I think there's this idea that like opera belts out. It is loud. It is boisterous, right? Which there are obviously those moments, but there are some really keen, soft harmonies that happen in this opera that I was blown away by, and just phenomenal, top tier talent on this show. And lastly, I just gotta say, I was really impressed with the movement of the cars on the stage. I'm just gonna say that, the motorcycle coming through. I mean, it really is this whole town feel. So, DuWayne, just thank you for coming and sharing your experience and your history, in your musical family that brought you to the opera. One of the things that I appreciate about our partnership with Seattle Opera is making it accessible. So you coming on, sharing your experience is so key to our audience understanding that this is something they can go out and enjoy with their family. It's accessible to the Black community in particular. So thank you for, being there. That means a lot to me out there in the audience. I was like, look, there goes a brother right there. Like, I saw your niece too. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, great. We need to see that diversity on every stage. And I love that, Seattle Opera is being intentional to make sure that they are bridging those gaps so that people can feel like this is a place for them to come as well. Make sure you look right there. Looks like tickets are on sale till August 20th. Let them know how they can come and check out Elixir of Love.
Certainly. So please go to www.seattleopera.org/Elixir, and you can go to the event section of that page to find out all information about the discounts and the rush tickets. And you can find me either on Instagram at DEA, the number 2way, so DEA 2way. And you can find me on Facebook at DuWayne Andrews Jr. And you can also find me on YouTube with my full name, DuWayne Andrews Jr. as well. So looking forward to hearing from you. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely, DuWayne. Thank you so much for representing well.
No problem.
You guys, thank you so much for watching.